Elixir of Speed by Richard L. Elsliger. She seemed good-looking enough, actually quite beautiful. Her body dripped an oozing sexuality, different from anything I'd ever seen before. How could I explain this sexuality? Otherworldly comes to mind, a blonde-haired Norse maiden capable of bringing a man to Valhalla. But then again, I hadn't dated for several months, so perhaps my eyes were lying. Her stare came at me from across the bar, making me suitably intrigued and a tad nervous. Was she interested? Was it me she focused her attention upon, or was it the guy seated next to me? I'm a young man, in good shape, with all of my hair and teeth. Not to sound self-serving, but I look reasonably attractive myself. She somehow appeared a little older, more sophisticated than the usual girls I'd dated in the past. She wore a silk scarf patterned with black and white checkers that gave off a racy vibe. It wasn't just me that noticed her presence. The whole bar tracked this woman like a pack of piranhas. It didn't take her long to approach for an introduction, breaking the so-called ice, as it were. Her ice pick was very welcome. "Slow night tonight," she said. "Slower than a Yugo up Pike's Peak," I said, stirring my drink with a plastic swizzle stick. Her perfume intoxicated my senses. Never before had I inhaled such a strange and wondrous scent. I soaked up this sudden attention, this attractive bar predator, wondering if she might eat me on the spot. Something shined in her eyes, like a pair of distant and mysterious headlights, getting closer to reveal something exotic behind the high beams. And what headlights she did have. "You know something about cars, do you?" she asked. "A little here and there," I said in the most casual of ways. "Funny, I haven't seen you here before," she said. And she was correct. I often passed this bar on the way home from work, but never went inside. I held a certain disdain for the bar crowd and that whole bar scene. Tonight was somehow different. I had an irresistible and unexplainable urge to go inside. Call it fate or call it what you will. I was here for a reason. Well, I always walked past this bar, but never had an interest to go in until tonight. You see, I'm not much of a drinker. "Not much of a drinker," she said. "Meaning not at all?" She was getting personal really fast, and I wondered how much more of myself I should disclose before she got totally turned off and walked away. She didn't know that my mixed drink wasn't mixed at all, just orange juice and ice. If I came off as a teetotaler, she'd be gone. I thought I detected a faint accent, but I could not localize it. Ever so faint. Was it foreign? Russian? German? French? I had a good ear, but I could not place it for anything. This could get interesting. "Booze? Well, I can take it or leave it," I said. "I don't go out of my way to get buzzed. I mean, the taste is good when I have a taste for it, but I have yet to try anything that really blows me away." "Is that right?" she said. She looked away, distracted in thought, considering her next move. This is it. She's going to bolt. Au revoir. Auf Wiedersehen. Sayonara. She called over the bartender. "Let me buy you a drink," she said. "I have something that will knock your shoes and socks right off your feet. It's totally gnarly. Trust me." Interesting choice of words. That sounded like valley speak to me. Maybe she was local after all. With that underlying accent, it sounded old, perhaps ancient, the residual traces of a long extinct dialect. Her proposition tempted me. How could I say no? How could any man? The bartender came over at her beck and call. "What'll it be?" She smiled. "Give my friend here a half daiquiri. I want to try a little experiment." Experiment, I thought. Is this chick crazy? Oh, she's a wild one, I can see. She's the experimental type. Maybe she was bi. Even better, maybe she was tri. She's a trisexual. She'll try anything. I might even get laid tonight. I like where this is going. "What's your name?" she asked, twirling her hair with a slender but firm finger. Her voice now sounded very foreign, the hint of valley speak evaporating. Yet her voice soothed me with a feline charm. She sounded sophisticated, as if having lived several lifetimes, yet her exterior bodywork and chassis maintained a youthful presence of beauty, never aging like a timeless classic car. Was she immortal? "Rick," I said with hesitation. "My name is Rick." Man, was I out of practice. Rick, she said. I like that name. It's an old name. It means powerful leader. She just blew me away. How did she know the meaning of my name? Good-looking and educated, she intimidated me. Her Valley Speak accent seemed to ebb and flow, sounding illiterate, then worldly, leaving me bewildered. Where the hell did she come from? Where had she been? More important, where was she headed? And would she take me with for a glorious ride? I looked into her eyes and saw something deep and profound. She hypnotized with wild eyes, crazy eyes. I knew at once I wanted more of this woman. She electrified me in ways I cannot adequately describe. Never before had I experienced such an overpowering feeling about a woman. The bartender came back with a daiquiri. It actually looked tasty, but I had them before, and they never really quite impressed me beyond their appearance. "Okay," she said. "Take a sip now before I light it up." I picked up the drink and eagerly complied. "Tastes like a daiquiri," I said, "like every daiquiri I've ever tasted." I put the drink back down on the bar countertop. "Okay," she said, withdrawing a liquid packet. The liquid sloshed around inside the transparent plastic. It possessed a yellow tinge and moved within the bag like ripples over a lake. "May I add this?" she asked. "It'll give the daiquiri of yours a punch to your solar plexus." I watched her eyes. Did I see betrayal in them? I regarded her lips. They smiled with an open invitation, a promise for more. "I didn't get your name," I said. "My name is Naomi. Naomi Spencer. Pleased to meet you." "Okay, Miss Spencer, impress me." "I hope to," she said, and slipped the liquid into my drink, filling it to the brim. The daiquiri bubbled and frothed with effervescence. It turned several different colors, blue, red, green, purple, and orange, in a kaleidoscope display. Thin wisps of vapor rose from the glass, diminutive white clouds forming over the miniature maelstrom within the drink. "Wow," I laughed. "It looks toxic." "Don't be ridiculous," she said, her face persuading me with a girlish coyness that I found irresistible. What was this concoction? Should I drink it? I thought about the date drugs and all the associated publicity they received, but hey, I'm a guy. That only applied to unscrupulous men taking advantage of trusting women, didn't it? Besides, I could drink it in the safety of a bar. She wouldn't attempt to poison me in the presence of so many witnesses. "Bottoms up," I said, and drank the whole thing in an instant. This new hybrid daiquiri tasted downright powerful. It burned my throat with an intensity that felt beautiful. Its sweetness made my tongue and throat numb as it washed over my palate. The drink settled in my stomach and felt like sweet bubbling magma. I needed more. "Hey," I exclaimed, "what is this?" "Just a little something I brewed at home," she said, putting the empty packet away. "Wow, Naomi, I never had a daiquiri like that before." For a moment the room began to spin, and I steadied myself for a minute, and the sensation subsided. "That really blew me away," I said. "Can I have another?" "It did what it was supposed to do," she added. "That was my last packet, sorry." Her lips formed a very suggestive pout. I decided not to push too hard lest she thought me to be gluttonous, but I craved more. "Well, it left a lasting impression," I said. "So what do you do for a living?" "I race cars," she said. "Seriously?" I said, challenging her claim. "Sure do," she said. "Women can race too, you know." "I have no doubt," I answered, once again feeling myself tread upon such unstable ground. Why am I so stupid? I have to be more careful about what I say, or she's gone forever. I smiled and directed my attention toward her eyes, taking one last look at her breasts before using my patented eye-to-eye stare. She stared right back with untamed wildness, seeming to devour my very soul, as if she saw right through me like a wet paper towel. I knew enough about cars and pursued the subject to appease her. "So what do you race?" "Anything with a powerful engine," she said. "Well, that leaves it pretty wide open," I said. "Sure does," she said. "Open for anything." She smiled again, pursing her lips in a delectable way. "You want to come over to my race shop and see?" she asked. That feigned Valley Speak accent sounded more and more contrived with each passing moment, but I didn't care. Her invitation hooked me. I imagined her sprawled across one of her race cars, totally naked, me standing over her, tasting her alabaster flesh, preparing myself to take the plunge. "That works for me," I said, not wanting to sound that eager, though my body fulminated with lust. She took my hand and led me from the bar, directing me toward the exit. My mind went hazy, and her perfume added to this disoriented intoxication. She might easily have led me to a slaughterhouse, and I would not resist. Could I be so foolish to be falling for a complete stranger and falling so fast? It fit my prior history. I always jumped into relationships too fast. They never lasted because when you build your temple of love out of clay, it dries up, cracks, and blows away every time. But so be it. I'd rather be a participant in failure than never to try. Truth is, never to try is just another form of failure anyway. Tonight I will push my limits. After all, half the fun was the drive through life, navigating that twisty road even though you knew it brought you to a dead-end street on your last day. We all see the dead-end sign sooner or later. It's coming, make no mistake. Well, this motorist wants to drive a few sports cars before the ride ends. Out in the evening air, the temperature felt comfortable. The weather never disappointed here in California. We walked toward the end of the parking lot until I saw her ride come into view. It had to be hers. The car came right out of the 60s, exuding American muscle in every cubic inch of displacement. A rich blue paint clung to the sexy bodywork, punctuated by 2 white stripes down the hood. The car squatted on fat rubber at each of its 4 corners. "Is that your car?" I asked, already knowing the answer. "Sure is," she said. "69 Chevelle, big block, 396 with 4 on the floor." She ran her hand down the hood, gently caressing the cool metal as if it were a favorite pet. "Sweet ride," I said. She smiled and twirled those blonde-haired braids. Naomi failed to realize that my commentary meant as much toward her body as toward her car. I still had it, I thought, and soon I would have her. My sexual desires stirred within me. Male hormones raced and coursed through my being. Tonight I would get laid. Naomi opened the passenger door, giving me the executive treatment, service deserving of the brashest of CEOs, or a condemned man. My doubting self started to wonder why. I hesitated to get in. Generally people treated you nicely when they wanted something in return. What could she want? I wasn't rich, but I still had my looks, so maybe she felt a physical attraction. Maybe she wanted me for my body. I laughed. "Something funny?" she asked. "It's just that you don't see a beautiful girl driving a hopped-up Chevelle every day," I said. "Well, now you have," she replied, brimming with pride. "This is my everyday driver." "Shall we head out, then?" I asked. "Count on it," she said. I jumped in and she closed the door. The interior smelled of her intoxicating perfume and another faint but pungent odor that I could not readily identify. It made my head swoon. Was it gasoline? When she got behind the wheel, another round of her perfume hit my senses, and I felt deliciously comfortable. She inserted the key and twisted. The engine snarled to life and wailed, almost like it was a furious living entity. She shoved the beast in gear, and we were away in a smoky burnout. I turned in my seat and could see 2 big patches of rubber left behind. "You're hard on your engine," I said. "Totally," she said and smiled. "I know he can take it." She steered for the interstate and poured on the gas. There were few cars out tonight. Like she said, slow night. The sodium-filled streetlights whizzed past us, and the motor roared, increasing our speed. She shifted to 4th and nailed the throttle, sudden acceleration pinning me to my seat. "So are you from around here?" I asked. The scenery whipped by in a blur. I could see the speedometer hovering in the triple digits. "I'm from the valley," she said. "Valley girl," I said. I should have picked up on the accent. She smiled and pressed on. Another half hour of driving through insane digits of speed, and she turned off the interstate, steering for an industrial area. Rough, old buildings intertwined with new, like a living organism, dying cells being replaced by young ones, a continual cycle of entropy and growth, rejuvenating the whole to keep the area from eventual death. We idled down a dead-end street, and she turned into a small lot with a brick building on it. In the lot, she parked next to a hulk of a car that looked as if it had been on fire at one time. Rust covered the whole body, and all of the windows were gone, like they had melted from an intense heat. "Nice car," I said. "Yeah, that was one of my race cars. It never really ran right, and one race the motor blew apart and the whole thing caught fire. I was fine. As you can see, the car is not." "Did you win any races with it?" I asked. "No, he didn't have enough horsepower. Bad choice on my part." She sighed, and a countenance of regret washed across her face. Sorry to hear it, I said. But your streetcar sure is fast. Way, she said. I love this Chevelle. As we walked toward the garage, Naomi paused to look at her boisterous machine, cooling in the evening air. I saw a look of longing mixed with pride painted upon her face. I knew that car meant something special to her, like an old flame. Then her face became unemotional, almost stone-like. Come on inside, she said. So abrupt was her change in demeanor that it scared me. I realized how little I knew about this woman, and I was about to enter her den. She didn't know much about me either, so wasn't her risk greater? She never asked me any more personal questions, like where I was from, what did I do for a living. So far I knew more about her than she knew about me. Already I knew where she kept her race cars. For all she knew, I could have been a serial killer. In the U.S. at any given moment, there are several serial killers roaming free, and no one knows where they will strike, or when. Maybe she wanted a fling, no strings, no ties, just a fling. Better not to question it and let the evening unfold wherever it might take us. Man, that daiquiri tasted good. My mouth felt parched, and I wondered if she had more of the drink in her secluded garage. Come on, she said again, more insistent this time, unlocking the main entrance. I followed Naomi in tow, her perfume leading me by its invisible hook. She flipped on the overhead lights, and they buzzed with fluorescence. Inside were 4 race cars in various states of disrepair. 3 of them looked tired and used, and the 4th looked like it got all the attention. Its paint flashed a show-like finish, but the hood was ajar, and the competition suspension lifted the fenders high over the wheels, making it look like it had no engine. She spied my attention, lavished on the old racer. You like this car? She asked. What's not to like about it? I said. It's my special speedster, she said. He's my red baby. I've won a lot of races with this one. We've been all over the U.S. Like where? I asked, subtly mirroring her faltering valley-speak inflection. She grinned at me, somehow delighted at my line of questioning. From Willow Springs to Road America, Mid-Ohio to Road Atlanta, and back to Willow Springs again, not to mention every track in between. She raised her eyebrows at me, somewhat impressed by her own track record. She tested my reaction. You two are well-traveled, I said, taking a step closer to her. Yes, we are, she said, leaning back on the fender. Does your car have a name? I asked. Everyone likes to name their car, don't they? I've called him by many names. William, Michael, Edward, the list is long. She smiled devilishly at me. Maybe I should call him Rick, she suggested. There was my chance. If you use my name, you're going to have to give me something in return then, I said. And what might that be, Rick? She twirled her blonde braid and wetted her lips. I have something for you, I said, mustering all of my courage. I sidled up to her and took her by the wrist. I folded her arm behind her and I moved in really close. I looked her in the eyes. She stared right back, unflinching. I pressed my lips firmly to hers and probed her with a deep kiss. She moaned and put her free hand around my neck. Naomi pushed back at me with her own probing kiss. The heat of her mouth was exquisite, and it made me thirsty, strangely thirsty for that daiquiri she slipped me back at the bar. I pushed Naomi to the fender of her speedster and lifted her body up. I made her take a seat on the curvy bodywork. Her arms wrapped completely around my neck, and we got hot and heavy, kissing and probing, fondling and caressing. I rolled her torso over the hood, and her arms spread apart like an eagle. I unbuttoned her blouse and unfolded it neatly like opening a new book, exposing her breasts. Her chest heaved, and she had no bra. Those breasts, those luscious breasts, stuck up like a pair of bullets, and her nipples were erect. I began to kiss and suck on them like cotton candy. I removed her panties and shed my clothes in short order. I couldn't even recall how we got to this point, my mind swooning with passion. Before we moved to the main event, she produced a condom. I hated condoms, but safety first. We had raw, sweaty sex right there on the hood of her speedster for what seemed like hours. It satisfied me. She satisfied me. I finished and eased back to the floor of the garage. My mind spun, and I had to sit. Naomi slid off the hood of her speedster like a slick pat of hot butter, and she sat down next to me. You're quite a tiger, she said. And you're a tigress, I said. Care for a drink? She asked. Funny you should mention it. Yes, I've wanted another one of those daiquiris all night. Let me make you one then, she said, and slipped away to a corner of the garage that housed a refrigerator and a small eating area. I got up off the floor and all my muscles ached. I felt drained in such a good way. I heard Naomi rustle a pair of glasses in the back to pour that sweet elixir. "Are you coming over, Rick?" she asked. Her voice resonated with a syrupy, sensual tone, even after we had spent ourselves in what I would categorize the best sex I'd had in years. I also noticed that her valley-speak accent seemed to have evaporated, revealing someone much more sophisticated than she had earlier let on. There were many layers to this sexy onion, and if I wasn't careful, the onion might make me cry someday. "Be right there, babe. You can count on it," I said. Inside me, the urge to sample another of those magical daiquiris ate away at my soul. I needed another fix right now. I headed in her direction and sat at the table next to a tool cabinet. "You do your own mechanical work?" I asked. "I do," she said. "That way I can be sure of what goes in my car." She exuded confidence while she mixed the drinks. And there was that packet, that liquid golden packet that made the daiquiri taste so exquisite. I watched her squeeze it into my drink, and then she stirred. The drink made its color transformation, blue, red, green, purple, and orange, settling down to a yellowed tint that tasted so delicious. She poured her own drink and sat with me. "Aren't you adding any of that magic punch to your drink?" I asked. "Already had some earlier this evening," she said. "Too much and I get loopy." "Fair enough," I said. "Let's drink up." "Here's to your next race victory," I said. "May your engine be powerful and strong." "I can drink to that," she said, and our glasses clanged together. I gulped my drink. It numbed my throat with its sweet and sour flavor and settled in my stomach with glowing heat. I felt my body on fire. "Wow," I said, coughing. "That hit the spot." She grinned and laughed. I spent the night with Naomi. We slept arm in arm on a bed she had laid out next to her speedster. Air mattresses were not the most comfortable, and they always seemed to leak over the night. The manufacturers never could get it right. Damn it, they always leaked air. But I didn't care about such trivialities. I enjoyed the intimate moments with this temptress, a northern beauty whose edge cut sharper than a Viking sword. I woke up a couple of times in the night and saw Naomi lying next to me, eyes wide, staring at me as if sizing me up for some purpose. She watched me from head to toe as if taking measure of my body. It had to be the sex. I turned her on. I found it flattering, and I kissed her, then went back to sleep. When we got up the next morning, I perceived her rabid nocturnal obsession toward me had to be the waning moments of a dream. I checked my watch. "Hey, it's about time I headed home," I said. Naomi ran her fingers over my chest, her nails as sharp as surgical knives. It left me with a warm sensation over my flesh, and I liked it. I felt like a man again, and sensed that I could conquer anything or anyone I encountered in this wonderful world. "So soon?" she asked. "We haven't even had breakfast yet." "Well, it is the weekend," I said. "I suppose I could stay for breakfast." I gave her a warm smile, and she reciprocated. Naomi lifted herself up off the clumsy mattress, half empty of its air payload. All she wore was a pair of cotton panties. She walked topless to the small hot plate and turned it on. She opened the fridge and withdrew a couple of eggs and some bacon. Wow, I thought, this woman cooks too? How is it that she's still single? Why had no man snapped her up? But then such exquisite beauty can be intimidating for a man. I am glad I overcame my usual timidity last night, or I would not be here right now, and right now is where I wanted to be. "Hey, Naomi, I'd like to ask you a personal question, if I may." "Oh," she said, cracking open the eggs into a frying pan and methodically laying strips of bacon alongside. "Have you ever been married?" She let out a chuckle. "No," she said. "Why do you ask?" "You are so amazing," I said. I wanted to kick myself in the ass for that remark. The worst thing a man could do is stroke a woman's ego. That's only empowered a woman to feel she can do better. Empowered women had no use for a servile man. She'd dump him fast, faster than dumping the clutch on her sports car. I'd tried such fawning in the past and suffered the consequences. I know better now and do not want to suffer such contempt ever again. Damn it, Rick. Watch what you say. I need to rein it in. What I mean to say is that you cook. Not many women do that anymore. I can imagine all the men trying to propose and take your hand in marriage. Not that I have any interest in the institution of marriage myself. There, that did it. An emotional disconnect to an institution that women glorified and reviled all in the same breath, it seemed. Once they achieved their so-called glorious matrimony, it only took a quarter mile before the disrespect started up. And then that dream man of theirs? He's history. He's in the rearview mirror. Women knew it. Men knew it too, yet they still married each other. My words showed I didn't care about that worthless institution. I think I recovered myself quite well. I saw it in her eyes. My comment jabbed her pretty good. "You don't like marriage?" she asked, biting down sensuously on her lower lip while she fried up the eggs and bacon. She turned to see my face, and I could see her luscious breasts hanging firm like a pair of watercolor paintings at an art gallery. For sure, my comment worked. It just reset the mating game button back to its default. Relationships were nothing more than trench warfare. You gained some ground, you lost some ground, but each side remained deep in their respective trenches, with an occasional armistice day like Christmas, Valentine's Day, and birthdays, maybe anniversaries if the man remembered. I leaned back and put my hands behind my head and made myself comfortable. Now for my thunderbolt of wisdom on the subject. Well, you know, marriage doesn't really work these days, does it? I mean, 50% of them fail, and of that 50% that stay together, how many of those are happy marriages? I'd say only half the surviving marriages are happy, and that's being generous. Naomi threw her head back and laughed, flipping the bacon and eggs. "So you're saying that only 25% of couples are happy, and the rest, the 75%, are miserable?" "Your math is good," I said. "That sounds about right," she said, paused, and then went back to cooking breakfast. "But what about marriage between man and machine?" she asked. "Aren't most men really married to their machines?" I considered the comment, digesting the significance and viability of such a theory. "Yes, they are, and quite happy about it," I added. "You think so?" she asked. "I think so, Naomi. In fact, I have to tell you that I used to be married." "You were?" she asked. I could see that girlish smile dilute upon her face like streaming rain upon a handwritten love letter. "Sure was," I said. Naomi stopped what she was doing and looked right at me. "How long, and what was her name?" she asked. "Several years," I said. "I used to call her the boss. Then I sold her." That beautiful smile once again materialized on Naomi. "Oh," she said. "So it was that kind of marriage, was it? What did you drive? No, wait, let me guess." "Feel free," I said. "Camaro." I laughed. "Are you serious?" "Challenger?" I shook my head. "Barracuda? You seem like a predatory fish to me," she said. "Do I now? I thought the same about you, but no, she was not a barracuda." Naomi puzzled over her next choice while flipping the bacon. "Mustang." "Maybe," I answered, teasing her. "You seem like the fastback type. 1966? "You're spot on about the fastback, Naomi. I already gave you a hint, though." I could see her rewinding our conversation in her mind. "Mustang, Mustang," said Naomi. "Let me see, you called her the boss." "I know, Boss 302, she exclaimed. "You're a quick study, baby. A 69 Boss 429 to be exact," I said. "Big engine, rare car," she said. "How did you come by her?" "It was my father's car. I got her from his estate." "Family heirloom," she said. "Why did you unload her?" "Student loans," I said. "I wanted them paid off, so I sacrificed my girl." "You wouldn't sacrifice me, would you?" she asked. "Not in 10 million years," I said. "Well, you're the boss now, so I have to believe you," she said. That comment inflated my ego. I was winning this game, and Naomi was submitting just as nature intended. Breakfast smells awesome," I said. No harm in complimenting a woman on her cooking. They all liked to hear that. It actually empowered their feminine drive, stirring those urges to the surface. "I am so stupid," she said. "I forgot to ask you how you liked your eggs and bacon. How inconsiderate of me." There, the submissive nature of womanhood finally kicked in. This could only be a good thing. She wanted to please, and I accepted. "Not a problem," I said. "On this special morning I am ravenous for eggs and bacon, any which way you make them." "Well, good," she said. "Sunny side up and crispy bacon on the way." She filled a plate full and gave me a massive portion, retaining only a few morsels for herself. We sat together at the table and ate, exchanged small talk, and when I finished she asked, "Hey, sweetheart, would you care for another drink before you go?" I thought about her offer for a moment, a split second in my mind that seemed an eternity before I answered. Should I? Naomi had pushed my secret button. She knew what I craved, what I needed, and made the offer. Her insight scared me. "Well, no more alcohol for me," I said. "I've reached my limit. Have to rein myself in sometime." "My little secret goes with many drinks, Rick, not just alcohol." There, she used my name again. I liked hearing her use my name. It elevated the relationship to a higher level. Sure, I loved the sex like any guy, but I wanted more of it, and more of it with her. To accomplish that, I wanted her at a higher level. The popular culture would have us believe that the only thing all men wanted was sex and nothing more. Me, I'll leave that for the insect world. I am a man, truth be told, and I will tell it. Men want sex with an attractive woman and lots of it with that woman. Therefore, men wanted relationships with women, long-term relationships. It's that simple. But nothing ever lasts, does it? The reality is that once the man solidifies the relationship, sex takes a back seat, a rumble seat, so to speak, and then the man starts to roam again, looking for that same level of sexual activity that his woman once provided so plentifully, but now restricts so severely. The conclusion that popular media draws? Men are scoundrels and should suffer the consequences of a roaming eye, such consequences typically in the form of legal action and financial ruin. Just look at the courts for your answer if you don't believe me. Sure, I could go for another. What do you have? I asked. How about an orange juice? She said. Why not? I said, sitting back in my chair. Naomi mixed the magic packet with a tall glass of Florida's Best and set my drink before me. I took a sip. The absence of alcohol made the drink that much more powerful, and the power of that drink knocked me over. It burned the back of my throat and made my tongue numb. I wanted more and drank the whole glass in one shot. That hit the spot, I said. I could sense the drink bubbling in my stomach. It made my head spin, and for a moment I could not stand up without wanting to fall. Are you sure this isn't alcohol? I asked. Quite, she said. Let it settle in, and you'll be all right. I sat down and waited. The spinning sensation passed, and then I felt great. Amazing stuff, I said. There's always more, she said. When can I see you again? Well, I need to tidy up my place and shop for food, I said, being non-committal. That lured her toward me, and she put her arms around my neck and kissed me, long and deep. Don't keep me waiting too long, she said in a sultry voice, a kitten's purr that weakened my knees. I had to maintain my composure and keep the upper hand. I'll call you, I said. Give me your number. I entered her number into my phone and gave her another kiss in return. I could use a ride back to the city, I said. Sure thing, said Naomi, holding up the keys to her Chevelle. On the ride home, Naomi pulled into a gas station to fill up. I waited and watched her fill the tank with premium-grade fuel. The aroma of unburned hydrocarbons filled my senses, and the odor seemed heavenly. Naomi had left the key in the ignition, so I watched the Chevelle's gas needle rise toward the full mark. I experienced a sudden stabbing pain in my stomach going down to my intestines. It ached in a weird sort of way, a sensation I had never felt in my life. Naomi withdrew the gas nozzle and hung it up, went in and paid, and we were on our way. I tried to hide the pain as we drove, but Naomi sensed something was wrong. Woman's intuition. Are you okay? She asked. Naomi read the pain on my face. Had it been that obvious? Just stomach cramps, I said. Maybe you ate too much of my bad cooking, she said. Naomi smirked and slapped me on my thigh. I needed to feed her a compliment. Push and pull, advance and retreat. Relationships between men and women were complex. Nonsense, I said. That was the best bacon and eggs I ever ate. I like the Naomi diner and plan to eat there on a regular basis. I slapped her right back on her thigh. Do you now? She said, shifting to fourth gear. The Chevelle's engine bellowed a throaty grumble, and we devoured asphalt at an incredible pace. From the rearview mirror swung a rattlesnake's head adorned with an Indian headdress. The open mouth displayed a pair of nasty fangs. Funny I hadn't noticed that thing until now. Where did you get this? I asked, tapping the snake head with my finger. That? Do you like it? She asked. Looks in keeping with the car you drive, I said. Looks badass. Why, thank you, she said. But really my car is a pussycat at heart. He's rather gentle. That remains to be seen, I responded. She ignored the comment and went motoring on. Naomi dropped me off outside my apartment complex, and I gave her a kiss before she departed. She screeched away, branding the asphalt with 2 tracks of smoking rubber. I wanted immediate sleep, and I crashed in my bed. I didn't awake until late afternoon. That romp session with Naomi really drained me. The nagging pain in my stomach subsided, and hunger replaced it. I warmed up some leftover pasta and ate it in front of the television. The news raged with the usual suspects: homicides, car crashes, corrupt politicians, and terrorists. I believe that all of these things, these life-altering phenomena, have always been and always will be. Human potential of the soul and human limitation of the body are crystallized, and this has been the case for many thousands of years. Sure, we can have more breakthroughs in technology to help our existence, But can we really get better as a species? I think not. Our potential to kill, that reptilian part of our brain, remains unchanged, much like the human heart. Even our physical reaction times to avoid accidents cannot change, and neither can our bad judgment that gets us into such precarious situations. I need a shower. I stripped down and stepped into the tub. Turning the tap handles hot and cold gave me that perfect mixture of warm, and I let the water soak me with gentle pulsing jet streams from the shower head. Steam rose up around me and I relaxed. I soaped myself and scrubbed. Then I felt something. My hand came to rest on a rough spot on my chest. I touched it. I scraped it with my fingers and then it flaked off and fell away. It looked like a dark scale of something on the floor of the tub, like reddish clay. Before I could pick it up, the jets of water blasted it down the drain. I checked the spot where it came off, just a rough spot of skin is all. I resumed washing and got out of the tub. I dried off and dressed. I sure could use another drink. I called Naomi. I walked to my car in the underground and I stopped halfway to stare at the old iron lump sitting on its skinny old tires. My transportation looked inadequate in the extreme compared to Naomi's ride. It would be embarrassing to park this car at her shop next to the Chevelle. Maybe I could tell her I have car troubles and have her come get me. That would be uncool, Rick. What man has to rely on a woman for anything? It is the woman who should rely on the man to get her around. I resumed my walk toward this antiquated tin can and I stepped in behind the wheel, slammed my door shut with a simmering level of contempt for this car, my car. I drove away from the cavernous garage out to the twilight. My hand steered me on the correct path to Naomi without really thinking. I'd only been there once and now my instincts led me there effortlessly. Only a few cars dotted the interstate and I made it to the turnoff in fantastic time. I wheeled my Spartan little coupe next to the Chevelle. I had to show some pride no matter how modest my ride compared to hers. Naomi must have heard me because the door sprang open and she stood there in a negligee. More sex. That's what the doctor ordered. "What took you so long?" she asked. I stepped out of my car and shut the door. "Well, my car isn't as fast as yours," I said. "You can be fast in other ways, then," she said. "Come in." Just the invite I hoped for, and I stalked my female prey to the entranceway. She put her arms around me and delivered a full consignment of kisses. Her hot breath on my lips gave me tingles. I needed more, and I escorted her over toward that speedster, wanting a repeat of the night before. Naomi shoved me back. "Don't you want a drink before we start?" she asked. "I do. More of the same, if you don't mind." She wasted no time mixing that concoction that had hooked me from my first encounter with Miss Spencer at the bar. I leaned on the edge of her speedster. The cool metal gave me eerie vibrations, as if it tried to speak to me. I closed my eyes and tried to imagine what, if any, message it tried to convey. "Here you go," she said, and handed me the drink. This time it looked like a protein shake or strawberry banana smoothie. Either way, it enticed me and I drank it down. That now familiar numbing sensation hooked me with a jolt, and the drink settled in the pit of my stomach. It bubbled and frothed inside me, giving a warm impression, a mixture of intense pleasure mixed in with a little discomfort. "How was it?" she asked. "Outstanding," I said, "like the first one. Can I have another?" I surprised myself with the request. I had no addictions in life. I never smoked and drank so seldom that if the alcohol retailers had to depend exclusively on me for their revenue, they would have declared bankruptcy a long, long time ago. That all changed now. This drink, my thirst for this elixir, seemed insatiable, like an alcoholic wanting just one more drink. I needed another right away. "Another one coming up," said Naomi. She wasted no time brewing a second drink, and in the time it takes a funny car to get down the quarter-mile, there she came with a tall glass of it. I drank this one down without giving myself a pause to breathe. It too settled in my stomach, bubbling up like a hot water spring. "What is this stuff?" I asked. "A magic formula that an old hot rodder gave me," said Naomi. "It's nothing but a few herbs and natural ingredients from the earth. He said it fuels the body." "I need to lie down," I said. Any sexual urges I had were quelled in an instant by this strange elixir. The room started spinning and I lost my balance. I fell to the floor and everything went black. I struggled to awaken, but found myself falling into a deep pit. I became delirious, caught in a dreamlike state, trapped between subconsciousness and wakefulness, my mind spewing forth images of race cars. blurs of colorful metal racing through my thoughts. Engines churned and spit horsepower. Pistons and camshafts shuffled within their tolerances. Ignitions fired and timing chains spun. My thoughts filled with mechanized nightmares, and I thought I smelled the acrid odor of exhaust. I awoke on Naomi's couch. She stood over me with a cold, wet cloth in her hand. She laid it on my forehead, and the coolness calmed me. "You were out of it for some time, Rick." "How long?" I asked. "At least a couple of hours," Naomi said, and placed a gentle hand on my chest. "You still feel up for it?" she asked. "Not really," I said. "I'd like to rest for a while if you don't mind." "That's fine, sweetheart. Rest as long as you want." Naomi walked over to her speedster and began working on it. I watched her break out several wrenches from a toolbox. She attacked the front suspension, tightening the front end while I watched her rear end. She executed her moves fast, like everything else about this tigress. The zip-zip sound of ratcheting wrenches echoed throughout the garage. "You're quite a worker," I said. Naomi wiped some perspiration from her forehead and looked at me. "I want to get him ready for the next race coming up in a few weeks," she said. "There's still a lot of work to be done to get him roadworthy." "Will it take much?" I asked. "It's going to take some effort to round up everything necessary, but I have a plan in the works." "Can I come to the race?" Naomi put down her wrench and came over to me and kneeled by my side. "Sweetheart, you can even be in the race. I'm so crazy about you." Her hands massaged my scalp and my eyes rolled back in dreamy ecstasy. This woman sent all the right signals. I never met such a feline temptress, and one with mechanical abilities, cooking abilities, and sexual prowess that no other woman could match. Who was she? What was she? "You can count on me being at that race," I said. "Lie back and rest," she said, and put a pillow behind my head. I fell asleep again while her hands stroked my hair. I felt like a Roman god. The next morning I awoke to see Naomi buttoning up the front end of her speedster and lowering the race car to the floor with the floor jack. Even the floor jack looked race-inspired. "Is that American-made?" I asked. "Damn straight it is," she said without a hesitation. "I only buy American wherever I can." "Well, your speedster isn't American," I said. "I didn't buy it," said Naomi. "I found him in a wrecking yard and blew the dust off." "How long have you had it?" "A few years now," she answered. I studied the lines of the thing. The body flowed as if chiseled by a waterfall. It sat low, and the red paint popped with electricity. With the right engine, I bet it was lightning fast. "So is it fast?" I asked. "Very fast," said Naomi. "But it all depends on the engine, doesn't it?" "Always," I said. "Would you like another drink?" "Sure could use one right about now," I said. Was I insane? Why would I accept another drink after what the last one did to me? Yet I could not stop myself. Naomi eagerly complied with my request and rushed over to her kitchenette. She rustled glasses from the cupboard and removed a packet of the tasty additive from the fridge. In no time she had a glass poured and placed on a small table next to the couch upon which I rested. The drink bubbled with dancing effervescence. My hand reached for the glass, my body desperate to absorb the beautiful elixir. I drank it down in one transaction. "How is it?" she asked. I looked at Naomi, and she started spinning like a magnesium wheel. The room began to rotate, and I fell back on my pillow. The lights began to dim, and my head filled with strange thoughts as I slipped toward unconsciousness. My legs were immovable like a pair of leaden weights cast to the ocean's floor. I slipped away. Was I dying? I awoke in the late afternoon with terrible cramps in my stomach and an aching, twisting sensation in my chest. Naomi worked underneath her car, the clicks of a socket wrench ratcheting a bolt onto the frame. I lifted myself off of the couch, and the pain shot through me from head to toe. Naomi stopped and sat up. "You look like you've been through a war," she said. "Yeah, World Wars III and IV, I answered. "Hungry?" she asked. "Only for you," I said. "Come on, let me make you something to eat," she said, and went to the kitchenette. Pots and pans banged, and she rustled through the fridge. The stove lit up, and meat began to cook and vegetables boiled. Naomi put the plates out and sat next to me while the food cooked. She stroked my hair and put her arms around me. "I want to feed my tiger," she said. "I want that tiger healthy and strong." I gazed into her eyes and read the sincerity of her words. I felt loved for the first time in a long time, and I must say it gratified me on many levels. "I want to perform well," I said, running my hands over her body. The sharp pains in my body subsided, and once again I felt sexual. Naomi sensed this. "It's in my best interest that you perform well," she said. "After dinner?" I asked. "For sure," she said, and walked to the stove and prepared our food. I kicked back and watched her hips sway as she dished up the meat and potatoes with a side of veggies. This woman was pure sex on two legs. I wanted to be with her forever. She served up big helpings on my plate and offered herself a meager ration. "Eat up," she said. "Looks fantastic," I said, and dug in. The meat melted in my mouth, and the flavor of freshly cooked broccoli, potatoes, and carrots enhanced this eating experience. I was at the gates of heaven and knew, after dinner, I would shortly gain entrance. "Well, that was fast," she said. "I know good food when I taste it, and right now I'm hungry for dessert." I pulled Naomi close to me and stroked her hair. She pushed aside the plate and reciprocated. I pulled her hair back and revealed her long neck, and I kissed the full length of her exposed flesh. "Dessert is served," she said. Naomi removed her top, letting her perfect breasts hang in the open air. "Help yourself," she added. How could any man say no to that offer? I helped myself like a ravenous wolf. Before long we were both totally naked, and I prepared for the main event. Naomi then stopped me cold. "Not so fast," she said, holding up a condom. "We don't want to conceive a little sports car now, do we?" she said. "Of course not," I said. "At least not now." I dutifully complied, and then the session started. The sex blasted a hole in my head, and when it ended, I rolled onto my back and passed out from the joyful devastation. Naomi cuddled next to me with her sultry body, and I was at peace with the world. Morning came, and I readied myself for work, but not before drinking another of Miss Spencer's magical brews. I drank it down and hit the road straight for the office. When I walked through the door, everybody looked busy, as if I'd fallen somehow behind with the outside world. I needed to jumpstart my day. I began to drink some coffee from the kitchen, and the taste of it I found offensive. I wanted another of Naomi's brews, and wished I'd taken an extra packet to get me through the day. The elixir mixed with everything, she said, not just alcohol. I shrugged off the coffee's bitter taste and went to my office and sat down. I picked up a pen from the holder, and I doubled over in pain. A horrible twisting sensation shot through my chest. What the hell was that? It turned and churned, then stopped. It terrified me. I looked out my office door. Everyone worked their jobs, impervious to my plight. Was it a heart attack? I considered the unthinkable. I steadied myself and paused a minute. No, couldn't be a heart attack. If it were, I'd be on the floor by now, unable to breathe, and likely taking my last terminal gasps. I waited for the twisting sensation again. It never came. I settled into my chair and opened a file. In minutes I fell into my work and forgot this unexplainable event. 5 o'clock came as sure and predictable as the oceanic tides. I headed for the door and knew exactly where I needed to go. The drive to Naomi filled me with urgency to sample her delicious warm flesh and the nectar she so eagerly provided. It only took a half hour to get there, and I pulled into the parking lot of her garage, posing my humble ride next to the Chevelle. The door to her garage opened, and light issued forth like a solar flare. All the lights were on, and they illuminated her extreme feminine shape, capturing my fancy. "Ready for some more?" she asked. "You know it," I said. I lunged toward Naomi, pushing her back inside the garage. She submissively complied. I would have my way with her, not to be denied, and I threw her against the speedster, stripping off her top. Those luscious breasts pointed like high-beam headlights, and I drank in their luminosity. Her skin shined a pale milky hue under the hum of the fluorescent lights. The more I kissed her lips and her chest, the redder her skin became. Naomi's sexuality blossomed, her body opening to envelop me in the fog of sex. Again she implored me to use a condom, and I dutifully complied. In minutes my body exploded and shuddered with insane pleasure over the hood of her speedster. I took a few steps back from Naomi, my hand to my forehead, as she recovered herself. "You know, I can use another drink," I said. "Coming up," she said. A routine was developing in my life, a set pattern. The chase followed by the sex, followed by the chaser. My life had a pattern, a very desirable pattern. I took one look into Naomi's eyes, and I knew she loved me. She whipped up another drink and brought it over while I leaned on her speedster, my body totally wrecked from the sex. "This one is a health drink I made up with fruit juice. I hope you like it." "I like everything about it," I said, "and everything about you." I drank it down, and this time I thought I could sense the liquid gold actually flowing through my veins. I felt like a supercharged power plant, my body feeding on the stuff. The numbness of my tongue felt familiar, and the burning of the back of my throat seemed appropriate and welcome. I became lightheaded and had to sit down. I positioned myself on Naomi's couch and lay down. Naomi came to me and stroked my face. "That's it, Rick. Just close your eyes and dream," she said, and with that I was out. I awakened on a racetrack. I saw cars ahead of me and some behind. The raw sound of race engines peppered my ears, and my body vibrated from the teams upon teams of horsepower that surrounded me. A green flag waved. Cars accelerated. I rolled forward, gaining incredible momentum. Race cars pulled up to either side of me, bashing my fenders, crushing me between their desperate attempts to get ahead. I wanted to wake up. I wanted out of this hellish race. I thrashed about in this alien landscape of my mind, unable to rouse myself. At high speed on the straightaway, I hit triple-digit numbers when my engine and flywheel exploded, shooting metal fragments everywhere. The fractured metal bits lacerated my body, sending deep cuts into my torso and face. I woke up screaming, my chest hurt, and I clutched at my heart. "Are you okay?" asked Naomi in a most calm and serene voice. "I think so," I muttered. "I just had a horrible dream, and now I have the most intense pains in my chest." Naomi came over to me and sat by my side. "You were only having a bad dream," she said, putting her arm around my shoulder. "The pain is all in your head. Do you want to talk about it?" she asked. What could I say? All nightmares had an ending. This nightmare was over, so talking about it could never change the hideous topography that had woven itself into the synapses of my brain. I would think about what I dreamt later, on my own terms, to see if I gained any insight. "No, that's okay," I said. "Do you have anything for an upset stomach?" Naomi smiled. "Now what do you think?" she asked. "I think I'll pass on that tonic of yours. Just a plain glass of water for me, please." Now, she said, and stroked my face with her soft hands. I relaxed and let her hands work their magic. She massaged my face and kissed me. "Let me make you just one more to help your stomach." Persuasion won me over, and before I could answer, she got up and I let her go about the task. In minutes I had a tall glass of that bitter-sweet elixir, and I gulped it down. The drink rolled over my palate and slid down my throat like a cascading waterfall of bursting flavor. It settled in my stomach with a dull but blissful ache, and I was satisfied in the moment. "Better?" she asked. "Much better," I said, and laid back. My feet felt strange. They were heavy, heavier than I ever recall, and I could not lift them off of the couch. I pushed the blanket aside and viewed them with a vigor most unfamiliar to me. I tried to rotate my right ankle, and it wouldn't move. I tried the same with my left ankle, with the same result. I panicked. "I can't move my feet," I exclaimed. "Don't be ridiculous," said Naomi. She came over and sat at the edge of the couch. She began to massage my feet, and I watched in horror. I had no sensation in either foot, yet I clearly observed her firm hands doing their work. "How does that feel?" she asked. "It doesn't," I said. At this point I should have screamed. I should have pulled out my phone and dialed for help, but I didn't. I couldn't. In that instant nothing seemed to matter. My head felt light and my spirit apathetic. The effects of Naomi's special tonic coursed through my veins, and it relaxed me. I wanted another. "Well, another of my drinks might help you," she said. "You read my mind," I said, and waited for the next round. How could I be so stupid? This drink seems to be killing me. But it tasted so good. What was Naomi's plan with me? Why did she continue to push this elixir upon me? Did I fit into some sort of insidious scheme? It couldn't be. Naomi loved me, and I loved her right back. She worked quickly to serve me up another, and in typical fashion I drank it down without a thought. The sensations generated by the elixir made my head dizzy, and I fell back onto the couch and floated away into another landscape. Once more I found myself moving at speed. Objects whirred past me at a startling rate. A narrow ribbon of road twisted and wound its way over hills and valleys. I sensed 4 contact points, my hands and feet on rough asphalt. I rolled at great velocity, periodically checking the rearview mirror for anything that followed. The sun began to set as I drove this empty road. I tasted the juice of speed, and it gave off a bitter flavor that stung my taste buds. I kept driving onward, compelled to stay on this perpetual highway that led to where, I could not say. Unable to find an exit point, Forward I drove, watching the sun set. Before long, the late afternoon sun departed, giving way to twilight. I could still taste the juice. It sustained me, kept me going into the night. I twisted and moaned, feeling pinned in place, covered by steel. I had to get out of here, my only escape consciousness. I had to wake up. I pinched my skin in the austere dream, attempting to rouse myself. I squeezed my flesh again, hard. Up I sprang, screaming and holding onto my legs. They ached with needles of pain deep within my veins. I could feel my blood struggling to pump through the femoral arteries. "You were out of it again," said Naomi. I didn't need her to tell me that. I already knew. Naomi had placed a blanket over my legs, and I pushed it away to see my feet. To my horror, my eyes did not see feet, but a pair of metal weights that took the shape of my feet. They clearly did not possess the texture of human flesh. "What is happening to me?" I exclaimed. "You are changing," said Naomi, with a sly smile on her face. Her expression had none of the former loving and soft features, but looked harsh and critical. It terrified me. "Changing into what?" I insisted. "All good things to those who wait," she said in a most irritating and condescending tone. "What have you done to me?" I demanded. "I did what was necessary," she said. "Why are you so evasive?" I asked. I touched my feet, and their texture gave off the sensation of solid iron. I tapped on my toes, and they made a horrible clank. I tried to wiggle them, and they remained immobilized. I tried to move my feet, and they remained fixed in place, rock solid. Oh my God, what was happening to me? "It's all part of the process," said Naomi. "Would you like another drink to make you feel better?" "No," I shouted. The connection was clear now. I was being poisoned. "Oh, soon you'll want another, my sweetheart. You will." Naomi came over to me and sat down, stroking my face and hair. I seized her hand and shoved it away. "Get me to a hospital," I demanded. "Hospital?" she laughed. "What could they do for you now? The process cannot be reversed once it's started." "What process?" "What you are becoming," she answered. "What you will be." "This is murder," I shouted. "Murder!" "Spare me the drama, Rick. It's not murder. Before long you'll see it's not murder." Naomi shook her head at me, laughed, and walked away. I had to get out of here. I had to leave now or it'd be too late. Naomi turned away and began mixing another drink. That damn drink. Was it arsenic? I threw down my covers and moved my legs into action. Thump, thump went my feet to the floor like two iron cannonballs. Naomi turned again and looked at me. "Trying to make a break for it, I see." She laughed an evil cackle, so much the opposite of that sly but sensual woman I first met at the bar. Her face changed, and I could now see in her a maniacal drive toward my untimely demise. I grabbed my left leg and flung it forward with my hands, for the weight of my cast-iron foot was so great that my leg muscles alone could not lift it. I fell. "Go ahead," she smirked. "Keep going, Rick. You're doing fine." I was not doing fine, and now my situation looked grim. I could not run. I could not walk. I could barely crawl. I could go nowhere. My innards twisted again, and I shrieked in agony. I wanted that damn drink to quell the pains inside. I needed that drink with immediacy, more now than ever before. Naomi knew it, too. She came over to me and sat on the floor, another drink in hand. "Want some?" she asked and offered. "You drink it," I said, and spat on the floor. "But I made it for you, dear Rick. Here, have a sip." I pushed the drink away, spilling some of the gold liquid to the floor, but Naomi brought it right back to me again, passing it to her other hand. I stared at it, the texture, the exotic color, and I wanted it. I wanted to grab that drink from her and chug it down my throat. Naomi knew how my body craved the stuff, the evil elixir, and I realized that she had done this all before. I wasn't her first. There had been others. "Give it to me," I demanded. I seized the drink from her hand and drank it down in one fluid motion. That bitter, sour taste flooded my senses, and my head again swooned with dizzy pleasure. I looked down at my feet and saw the iron climb further up my legs to my shins. I roared in pain. I watched the flesh of my calves disappear, my skin being replaced by the cold appearance of solid iron. I doubled over with agony. "That's it, Rick. It'll all be over soon, and with this new transformation, you will enjoy a very special place in my heart." How could this be happening? I desperately needed medical treatment. I removed my phone from my pocket and tried to dial. 811. No, was it 511? No, that wasn't it either. What was the number? I could not remember. The phone slipped out of my hand and cracked into pieces on the floor. Naomi came with a dustpan and broom, sweeping the pieces away. Would you like some more to drink? She asked. I would not want you to have an iron deficiency. Naomi threw back her head and laughed with a diabolical cackle. You're a real witch. She waved me off with her hand. My body lay decked out on the floor of her hellish garage, doubled up in pain. The iron crept further, taking my knees. I touched my thighs. The flesh was still warm, but beneath to my lower extremities, the things that were once my calves felt cold to the touch, and as solid as the iron they had become. I want more, I said. I could not stop myself. Naomi went to the counter and poured off another shot from the pitcher. She mixed the drink with delicate hands and shuttled the elixir to my eager palate. This was my chance. As she stooped over me, I grabbed her throat with my hands and began to squeeze. Hard. Naomi choked upon my crushing grip, and I squeezed with greater intensity. I wanted to kill this bitch outright for what she had done. I felt a cracking sensation against the side of my head, and I let go of my grip. Glass shards from the drink went scattering to the floor, and the liquid spilled over the cement like iridescent blood. You have spirit, she said, picking herself up off the floor. That's just what I need. Need for what? I asked, delirious from the blow to my skull. To power my speedster. I don't follow you, I said. My head pounded from that hit, and I touched my forehead. I felt the warm trickle of blood. That will heal up, dear Rick. Don't worry. I have every reason to worry, I said. What are you doing to me? I already told you, Rick. I picked you from among many men. It is you that will power my speedster. Power your speedster? How can I power your speedster? Naomi gave me a crafty smile. She walked over to the blood-red speedster and unbuckled the vintage-styled leather straps that held the hood in place. She popped open the bonnet. You are the engine, my dear. You're the power plant that will drive me to Victory Lane. This will be your final resting place. Though the way I drive, I don't expect you will be getting much rest. She laughed again. That's impossible, I screamed. When I looked down at my legs, I knew it to be not only possible, but most likely probable. More pain shot through me, creeping up my thighs, and the iron traveled a little farther. My knees had solidified. I was becoming a block of metal. Naomi saw the look of discovery on my face. I believe you are starting to understand, she said, and went to prepare me another drink. What's in that damn drink? I demanded. Well, let me see, she said. There's gasoline. There's sugar for flavor and a special little potion given to me by a former racer from a long time ago. Gasoline, I exclaimed. You're poisoning me. Poisoning is such a strong word. It's more like a conversion. I'm converting you into something useful. And as you and I both know, matter can neither be created nor destroyed. It can only be converted into another form, and that, my dear, is what I am doing to you. I thought you loved me, I exclaimed. But I do, sweet Rick, I do. You were specially picked over many others. If that isn't love, I surely do not know what love is. Naomi brought me another drink. I stared at it. Those exotic colors bubbled and stirred. I had to have it. Give me the drink, I demanded. Naomi cheerfully offered me the tall glass, and I held it to my hand. I turned away from it, loathing this bizarre addiction. My rational being resisted, but my need overcame my intelligence. I had to have a sip. I put the glass to my lips. The aroma permeated my senses. I tilted the glass. The elixir touched my lips, and I poured. Down it went the whole glassful. Now it filled my body with the most exotic and pleasant sensations. It felt like 1,000 needles of pleasure, and my head spun with delight. The iron advanced faster this time, traveling up my thighs. I grabbed them in terror. The pain disappeared, and my mind welcomed this incredible transition. I had to get out of here before it was too late. I dragged myself across the floor. Naomi sat on a chair and watched my pathetic efforts. My legs scraped along the concrete, making an ear-splitting screech. I clawed and pulled my useless lower trunk. The incredible weight made my efforts futile, and I had to stop and catch my breath. There was no way I was getting out of here. No way whatsoever. The thing inside my chest no longer felt like a heart. It gave the impression of something alien, something that did not beat anymore but rather spun. A crankshaft? Did I now have a crankshaft that resided in my chest, replacing a once beating human heart? The twisting and sliding sensations were strange, yet not unwelcome. Were these now pistons that replaced my lungs? A thunderclap of fear gripped me. I gasped. Don't be frightened, Rick. It's all part of the process. Naomi grinned at me and took a seat on the couch, picking up a magazine about engines and horsepower. I felt like an animal getting ready to be slaughtered and served on a dinner plate. I pulled myself further along, getting close to the exit door. Even if you got to your car, Rick, how would you drive? Look at yourself. I ignored her words, the human part of me wanting desperately to hang on and seek out help before I lost my humanity forever. Here, let me prepare you another drink to speed up the process. I wanted another drink. The mere suggestion made me crave that damned elixir. I knew that another sip would follow with a chug and bring me much closer to my end. But God, I had to have it. Naomi went and prepared a fresh cocktail for me, and in 2 minutes she kneeled by my side, making the offer of a new reality. I took the drink and drank it down as I could not resist. The iron ore traveled up my hips, enveloping my flesh, reinventing the man that I was and never more will be. Naomi walked away and headed to her tool cabinet. She swung open the doors and withdrew a blowtorch and a sledgehammer. What remained of my heart, my fading humanity, pumped madly at horrid scenarios that raced before me, staggering images of terror. "What do you intend to do?" I asked, my voice faltering, sounding less human. "I'm going to mold you, sweet Rick. How else can I get you to fit into my speedster?" Naomi rummaged through a drawer and pulled out a flint lighter and a welder's mask. She slipped the mask over her head and let the opaque glass flip down to shield her face. She looked every bit the executioner in this outfit. She turned on the torch gas and lit it up. Naomi came at me with the acetylene blue flame in one hand and sledgehammer in the other, a faceless executioner, comfortable in her newfound anonymity. I could not see her face to even determine if she had any last feelings over what she intended to do to me. All social cues, if there were ever any, were gone. I closed my eyes and bit down hard. The blast of heat roasted my metallized legs, and surprisingly they still registered pain. I shrieked in agony, wanting it to end fast, but as I saw Naomi's slow but determined approach, I knew this would be a drawn-out procedure. I scratched and clawed madly, trying to get away from the heat, trying to get to the door and scream for someone, anyone to end this insanity and get me to a hospital. I had no strength left, and my mind swooned from the effects of that cursed elixir. I submitted. "I'm very sorry about hurting you like this, Rick. I'm sorry for what I'm doing to you." Naomi said it like she meant it, but I knew this to be the rambling of an evil sociopath, bent on realizing her own goals no matter the cost. A small part of me supported an intellectual curiosity about what I might become and how I would perform. The rest of me chastised that tiny curiosity, telling me the severity of the situation, which could only lead to a bad ending. The searing pain traversed my legs, and I flopped about on the floor like a fish. Then Naomi let off the torch. I breathed a heavy sigh and fell back on my arms. My legs glowed a dull orange from the intensity of the heat. Naomi lifted the dark mask and winked at me. Moments later, that's when the pounding began. She swung hard with that sledgehammer, each strike contorting my legs in weird and amazing ways. I watched on with astonishment at the power wielded by a woman who at first glance seemed dainty and docile. "Wow," said Naomi. "I'm actually working up a sweat doing this, but you're worth the effort, my sweet Rick." Naomi must have seen the pain etched in my face. She must have known the misery I suffered. I turned and looked away from her and caught view of several engine blocks lined up in a row, looking as if they were once viable mighty power plants, now discarded as worthless lumps of iron. "I see you noticed the other engines over there," said Naomi. "Here, let me explain." Naomi put down the hammer and walked to the first block far away in the corner. "This engine here, his name was Frederick. You know, when I first met him, he told me he'd come all the way from Europe just to meet me. Can you imagine the level of creativity that goes into such a pickup line?" She laughed and gave the rusty block a kick. "He was strong, but he only lasted a couple of races before blowing up and spilling all his oil over the track. I always figured those European guys to be temperamental and quick to blow a gasket." Naomi smirked at her own callous humor while I shuddered inside. "This engine here," she said, "his name was Jack. He lasted a few more races than average. He helped me win a few of those races, too." She gave the silent engine a swift kick. "Poor Jack," she said. "Now you're only good for a jack stand." She pointed down the long row. "I could go on," said Naomi, "but you and I have work to do." Naomi flipped down the charcoal visor and relit the flame, coming at me again to finish her murderous handiwork. "No," I pleaded. "Let me go. Find another." She paused and lifted the visor. "Find another?" said Naomi. "Now why would I do that, Rick? We're so far into our project together. That would be like giving up a restoration job on a vintage Rolls-Royce. And you'll drive like a powerful Rolls engine. You're perfect for my needs, Rick. Trust me." I closed my eyes, dreading the flame. Down went the visor, and the torch hit my legs once more, making them glow a dull orange. A minute later, Naomi swung the hammer in vicious blows, my malleable legs folding under me and behind me until I could see them no more. The twisting sensations in my chest swelled, spinning fast like a lubricated roller camshaft and firing pistons. "Let me go," I pleaded. Naomi would hear nothing of it. Once done with the hammer, she removed her mask to view her work product. "Not bad," she said, examining my doubled-over legs. They cooled under the ever-present hum of fluorescent lights. "You look thirsty, Rick. Can I pour you another drink?" "Go to hell," I said, and spat at her. "Some say that's where I'm from, for sure. Maybe I am, who knows?" She went to the kitchenette to mix a drink. "If I truly am from hell," she considered, "I don't need to go back there just yet. I'm having way too much fun here with you, dear Rick." I heard the drink glass clang with the juice mixer. The sound harkened me back to my times with my grandmother. I remember my life with her growing up in that small neighborhood, my parents having split the scene when I was very young, my dear grandmother taking on the responsibility of raising me up to be a man. I found myself in my grandmother's kitchen, seated at the dinner table as she prepared the place settings. I wanted back to that life. I wanted out of the present here and now. I dreamed of time travel. Naomi snapped me from that excursion into my past by floating another drink under my nose. I pushed it away. "No, no, no, no," she said. "You must drink up if you want to grow strong and fast." Naomi lifted my head and poured the drink into me. I tried spitting it up, but once that flavor and sensation got inside me, I had to finish it. "You bitch," I said. "Sometimes," she answered. "Just depends on the day you find me." Naomi walked back to the couch and watched more of the transformation from a comfortable distance. I fell back on my contorted legs of metal. Lying down seemed to accelerate the process, as now the metal traveled upward beyond my waistline and took part of my stomach. The pain shot through me more intense than ever. Valves opened and closed. A crankshaft turned and camshaft spun, the engine components from within priming themselves, using my body for their creation. Intensity changed to tranquility, and I closed my eyes to dream. Once more I found myself at home, my grandmother watching her favorite show on television, laughing with hysteria at the slapstick coming through the blue tube. I watched her from the kitchen, a silent observer. I called out to her. She did not answer. I called louder. She still did not answer. I felt myself drowning, my former life slipping away. I wanted home, back to my youth. My arms outstretched, I pleaded for my grandmother to save me. She continued to watch the television, laughing. I turned away, knowing this was all an illusion, a foggy memory of times past. I had a new life now. I awoke to Naomi standing over me, blowtorch lit, and that evil dark welding mask covering her beautiful face. Again she hit me with the blue flame, and I could feel my metallized body heating fast from the high-intensity torch. I screamed once more in pain, but knew that my screams could do nothing now to reverse the process. I could see my torso flashing a dull orange. Naomi took the sledgehammer and let loose with several swings, pounding my gut into a mass of malleable metal. She let off to allow her handiwork to cool and took a seat by her speedster. I could see the exit door just a few feet away. Beyond that door I could beckon the outside world for help. One well-placed scream could end her evil reign over unsuspecting men. Once more I attempted to drag my hybrid body of flesh and metal toward the door. The scrapes of iron grated sharply throughout the garage. It drew Naomi's attention, and she sat back to watch my pathetic struggles. "If you can make it to the door," she said, "I will give you one chance to shout out for help, but only if you can make it." She toyed with me now, I knew that, but the offer seemed irresistible, and I pulled harder along the floor, dragging my new metal mass, my new and horrid body. I couldn't do it. I had not the energy to get me 1 foot further, the weight of metal too great to pull toward freedom. I abandoned my efforts. I was damned thirsty. "Can I have one more drink?" I asked, knowing that this could be my last one as a man. I wanted it to end. "Only too happy to oblige," said Naomi. She poured the rest of that cursed elixir into the glass and brought it to me. I could barely lift myself to take a sip, but Naomi, ever the delectable hostess, lifted me up to help. I put the glass to my lips and I drank. She poured and let it flow. My throat devoured the substance. That was it. That did the trick. Naomi let me recline for one last time. Now the iron ore spread like cancer through the rest of my body, traveling up my neck, taking over my face, my brain. I felt crystallized and could not move. My breathing stopped. I went into a tailspin of fear. I tried to inhale to no effect. I could still see through my eyes, but they were locked in a fixed stare. Naomi kneeled over me and gave me a kiss to my iron-formed lips. I tried to speak. Nothing came from my lips. My humanity vanished. All I could do was wait. And then the blowtorch lit up. Naomi swung that sledgehammer like she had done many times before, a woman molding her man to suit her special design. My body complied, and soon I took a new shape, the shape of a V8. Naomi took a hydraulic jack and flipped me around. I felt a hole form in my back and several holes at my sides. Naomi went to her workbench and came back with a set of carburetors, exhaust manifolds, and several bolts. The zip of a socket wrench secured the speed parts to my body, and she topped them off with velocity stacks. She rolled a cherry picker over, and I felt chains wrap around me at all four corners. My body lifted and became airborne, swinging to and fro as Naomi wheeled me to her speedster in waiting. She screwed spark plugs into my sides, secured electrical connections, and bolted on engine accessories. Now I hover over the engine bay. Naomi lowers the chain. In I drop. She begins to bolt me down to engine mounts, securing me at all corners. My body stings with connecting hoses. I will get to drink again. I need it, that raw taste. The hood closes. I feel the pump prime and that delicious gasoline surges inside me. Then electricity races through my body. I start up. Naomi laughs while I scream. I scream for that gasoline.